As abruptly as Russia began its military campaign in Syria nearly 6 months ago, President Putin has ordered the withdrawal of Russian military forces from the country. The president announced that the Russian military had accomplished their mission in Syria and that the estimated 3,000 to 6,000 Russian troops are to withdraw from the country. The process will take about 5 months. However, Putin is not completely abandoning al-Assad. The S-400 surface-to-air missile system and a number of military advisors and as many as 2 battalions or 800 servicemen will remain in Syria, spread over 2 locations, meaning Russian forces will remain operational in the Bassel al-Assad airbase in Latakia and the naval facility in Tartus. This unexpected move has many wondering why, especially since for months the Russian forces backed by warplanes, missiles and artillery pieces have bolstered the al-Assad government. The opposition forces have been pushed back, and ISIS is weaker than it was a few months ago. Russia, together with Iran, have turned around the Syrian battlespace. For the first time in a long time, al-Assad is gaining the upper hand. However, the rebel forces are not yet defeated, and a Russian withdrawal means a setback for al-Assad. So how does Putin's withdrawal from Syria fit in the geopolitical grand design of Russia? My name is Shirvan and welcome to Caspian Report. For more information on Caspian Report, please visit our Patreon page. To understand Putin's decision to withdraw from Syria, we must first clarify the Russian interests in Syria. The official explanation for Russia's military intervention in Syria is that al-Assad requested for Putin's aid against ISIS. Over the past few months, Moscow has certainly weakened ISIS. It is estimated that since the launch of the airstrikes in September 2015, the Russians have flown more than 9,000 sorties and have killed approximately 1,100 ISIS militants. Yet, at the same time, an estimated 1,700 civilians have died because of the airstrikes. What's more is that the airstrikes have mostly focused on the pro-American and pro-Turkish rebels. As we noted in a previous Caspian report regarding the purpose behind the Russian airstrikes in Syria, Putin certainly has interests in Iran and the Middle East, but not so much in Syria. Moscow has more immediate geopolitical concerns. Russia is attempting to bolster its international image as an equal to the United States and gain leverage in its immediate proximity. The war in Syria is a means to that end. To a certain extent, Moscow has succeeded. Putin has managed to rejuvenate the image of the Russian state and the Russian armed forces. Russia has demonstrated its ability to conduct extended military operations beyond its borders. Up until now, only the United States was perceived to be capable of such operations. Thus, Moscow's image as a superpower is restored. What this means in the long term is that it will allow for Moscow to reach out to many fragile authoritarian nations. Putin will use Syria as an example that the age of colored or populist revolutions is over. Any authoritarian or dictatorship that seeks an ally to guarantee its security will find one in Russia. Think of it from the perspective of an authoritarian government. If NATO is there to impose democracy by overthrowing non-friendly authoritarian governments, then Russia is there to guarantee the security of such governments. This allows for the expansion of the Russian sphere of influence. Furthermore, the demonstration of modern Russian weaponry in the Syrian battlespace has increased the demand for Russian weapons and arms. Foreign buyers from new markets are reaching out to Russian defense contractors at an unprecedented rate, and this includes Iran, which is already seeking for an alternative arms supplier to fully modernize its aging military forces. This potentially means that the Russian defense industry will engage in long-term commercial relations with Iran, which in turn will increase Moscow's influence in Tehran. The Syrian peace talks are another area which the Russians consider successfully accomplished. If war is the continuation of diplomacy, then the cessation of war means the continuation of politics. Putin's announcement for the withdrawal comes right after the latest rounds of the Syrian negotiations, which are held in Geneva. The 5-year civil war in Syria has uprooted roughly half of the population and triggered the refugee crisis in Europe. At the moment, the peace talks are in a critical phase. The opposition forces want to set up a transitional governing body with executive power and a new constitution. What's more is that they want new elections and the resignation of President al-Assad. The Syrian government, however, rejected these ideas and submitted its own proposal to the United Nations on March the 14th. In short, there didn't seem to be any middle ground, and the peace talks were set to fail. Putin's decision to withdraw its forces is an attempt to reshape the negotiations. It's entirely possible that Putin has reached some sort of an agreement with al-Assad, or that he is trying to force al-Assad to make concessions at the negotiating table. If the current peace talks turn into a diplomatic solution, Putin will claim it was the Russian intervention that secured it. If the peace talks collapse and Syria returns to civil war, Putin will have demonstrated how indispensable Russia is as a global power. Either way, for Putin, al-Assad has served his purpose. The newfound Russian leverage will allow Moscow to pursue its primary interests in Ukraine. The crisis in Ukraine and the Western sanctions on Russia are two primary threats to the long-term stability of the Russian Federation. Thus far, Putin has failed to bargain with Obama for the geopolitical exchange between Syria and Ukraine. Now, instead of reaching an agreement with Washington, Moscow is trying to exploit the divisions within the European Union to prevent the renewal of the Russian sanctions in July. In the coming 5 months, which coincides with the Russian timeline of the military withdrawal in Syria, Moscow will reduce its operations in Syria, leading to a steady decline of refugees moving into Europe. 2 countries in particular will be relieved with this development. Italy and Hungary have been hit hardest by the flow of refugees. By reducing its military operations in Syria, Moscow reduces the flow of refugees into Europe, particularly into Italy and Hungary. Already, the foreign ministers of Italy and Hungary have met with their Russian counterpart to discuss events. The Russian plan is that in return for the reduction of refugees, either Italy or Hungary will object during the voting process in July regarding the renewal of the sanctions against Russia. It's worth mentioning that after the meeting of the Italian, Hungarian, and Russian foreign ministers, the European politicians stated that the renewal of the sanctions on Russia is not definitive. The thing is, it takes unanimous vote to extend the EU sanctions. Russia only needs to persuade one EU member state to reject the sanctions. Essentially, this means that Russia is using the refugee crisis to increase its leverage in Italy and Hungary, with the ultimate goal to halt the renewal of the EU sanctions on Russia. This is something that Putin desperately needs. Moscow will be able to withstand the European sanctions in 2016, but the sanctions need to stop by 2017. Russia's reserve funds are running out. Moscow simply cannot handle the sanctions for much longer, especially not with the current low oil prices. The sooner the sanctions are disrupted, the better for the Russian economy. There is no guarantee that this strategy will actually work. Turkey could form a major obstacle to the Russian strategy. However, at the moment, Moscow is in a position to extract maximum benefit at minimal cost. This was a Caspian report by me, Shirvan. I just want to announce a quick update. Google has decided to stop the transaction of ad revenues for Caspian Report. It turns out that Google's automated systems are investigating the sudden increase in views for Caspian Report's content. I have already filed a complaint, but I have no expectations. In fact, this is precisely why I have set up a Patreon account. In essence, Patreon allows viewers to help support the costs of Caspian Report. Many viewers have already stepped up and pledged support for future reports. The names you are seeing now are the top contributors on Patreon, and the steady stream of content is a testimony that it really works. So if you enjoy watching Caspian Report, I hope you'll contribute on Patreon. Either way, thank you for watching, take care, and Sahol.